And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Jenn and Rick show here on KLRN Radio, except for tonight, it is not Jenn and Rick, it's Jenn and Jesse.
Lady
Hi,
Power!
Jesse, how are you?
We're at it again, Jenn.
Yep, the ladies are taking over once again. Rick's still a little under the weather, but that's all right. We're ready to kind of jump in and talk about the things that have been going on, and oh boy, have there been things. So I guess let's just go into it and talk about Bradley, Chelsea, Manning, and
I just say Manning. That way I don't have to worry about first names, personal pronouns.
Oh man, it gets exhausting, doesn't it?
It does, and that's why, how about the last name? You know, you can't argue with that one. That didn't change. So
that is true. That is true. Sometimes people do change their last, but
I was seriously. I heard about this, and I was going, "Where's my duct tape? Where's my duct tape? No, where is it?" So it was just insane because. And then I made a couple calls and sat down and talked to a couple people that are more, excuse me, it's catching, Jenn. It's
that's
catching.
Okay.
That are more knowledgeable or learned than I am. And I came to the realization it could have been worse.
Right. And why don't you tell about why it would be worse?
Okay. President Obama, who has 3 days, well, 2.5 days left in office, and if you want to count the 17th as over, he's got, well, yeah, we'll say 2.5 days, because he's got the 18th and 19th, and half of the day on the 20th.
Right.
Left in office, so 2.5 days left in office. Commuted Manning's sentence. But he didn't pardon him. He didn't pardon Manning.
Right. So, just a quick reminder for everybody, Manning is the one who several years ago fed Julian Assange and WikiLeaks hundreds of thousands of documents that created all sorts of problems for our national security teams and the intelligence community in general. So this has been something, and then once in prison has been going through transition, which is why we're making the Bradley or Chelsea or pronouns, which do I use, what do I do? So has been going through the transition and been trying to get approval for basically us to pay for it while in prison for leaking info, treason. I mean, this is absurd. But so because this is not a pardon, and what Jess was saying is this is not a full pardon, so therefore it still is all part of his record. Everything that was taken from them from the dishonorable discharge and denied benefits, all of those things cannot be reinstated because this was commuted. It wasn't an actual pardon.
Right. So I was relieved it wasn't a pardon because I'd heard rumors of pardon. And that would have made me absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
But Obama has commuted thousands of sentences.
Yes.
Most of them are drug-related crimes. Now, I will agree to one thing, Jen, and I don't know how much you know about the legal system and the penalties for different drugs. Crack cocaine carries, in some cases, it's carried up to 100 years more than powder cocaine.
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So, and I think that's a disparity in the justice system.
Right.
Because powder cocaine, and I researched the weirdest things. Powder cocaine tends to be a more high economic class drug. And I don't, for the record, folks, before I get the nasty emails and the nasty tweets going, you shouldn't be I'm not promoting drug use. I've read a bunch of studies and read papers and articles. Do not use illegal drugs. I've never touched an illegal substance a day in my life. In fact, Jen, I waited till I was 21 to have my first drink.
Well, I did not, but but I certainly was much more a prude than most of my friends were. I was wanting to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, and I had parents that wouldn't put up with nonsense, and so yeah, I did what I needed to do and spent not as much time doing those things as some of my my teenage peers did.
My influence was my cousin, and he was a United States Navy SEAL. And I will not go into the details of any more of that information, but he was a United States Navy SEAL. And you know that flag in my show logo for Jesse's POV on KLRNRadio?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't have one of them. I have two of them.
Yep.
2 casket flags. So my cousin was KIA. But that's a different story. But okay, so Obama commuted a lot of sentences, a lot of them dealing with crack cocaine. Now they've adjusted the sentencing laws so that it's no longer an 18-1, or so it's no longer, it's 50 years for crack cocaine and 5 years for powdered cocaine.
Right.
They've adjusted the sentencing guidelines because crack cocaine does tend to be a drug for a lower socioeconomic class than powder cocaine.
Interesting. Kind of makes sense.
So
now that I think about it.
Yeah, and I can kind of see why. So President Obama has commuted thousands of mostly drug offenses, mostly people sentenced under these really outlandish crack cocaine guidelines. Some of them have guns in their background, some of them don't. You'd have to go through thousands of cases, and I didn't have time for that noise. I read a couple summaries. But a lot of them were sentenced under those economically disparate laws, as I'm going to call them, where it was the crack cocaine that gave them a life sentence because they had crack cocaine instead of powdered cocaine in the possession.
Man, that's crazy. Well, I think, when I know that some people think that this is like just such a huge surprise. I think that this one, along with a few others, has been expected. I think, at least to some degree, people didn't know for sure if it would happen, but it wasn't supposed to be a huge surprise if it did. It blows my mind that we're talking about somebody that participated in activities that are so detrimental to the security of our country, and they are going to be walking among us after the middle of May.
Yes, but at least Manning will still have a criminal record.
I do like what, and this kind of leads us into the next thing, is so Sean Davis of the Federalist said, giving classified info to WikiLeaks is good as long as it only endangers national security and not Democrat careers. And that's kind of leading into my next thing. So after they spent the whole election season cheerleading or post-election season, cheerleading the kind of the witch hunt to find who did think WikiLeaks was good and who didn't, because they think that it's pretty much directly responsible for Hillary Clinton losing to Trump. And so you've got the right, who used to be so mad about things like Manning and was absolutely anti-WikiLeaks at the time of national security breaches, are suddenly pro that because it was helping Trump, or so they think, and it was hurting the Clintons. And so there's that hypocrisy. And then there's the hypocrisy on the left of being happy about something like this, but, wanting people vilified that had anything to do with WikiLeaks that happened that possibly harmed Hillary. So you and I have said this shouldn't be that hard to make clear. People should be able to pick a side fairly easily, and it shouldn't depend on who it's helping or who it's hurting because of a political, a way that you identify politically. It shouldn't only be good if it helps Republicans. It shouldn't only be good if it helps Democrats. This is dangerous stuff. It's not good either way. And as an American, this should not be hard to say and feel like you're going to be vilified from one faction or another. We should be able to say that treason is treason and just call it that, and think that WikiLeaks is, a bad thing. Is it going to continue to happen? Of course it is. And I think in this day and age, you're always going to have something like WikiLeaks, even if it's not exactly named that. But I think it's wrong of our political ruling class to cheer for things that come out of that when it benefits them, and then want to scorch the earth when it doesn't. It's just bad.
Jen, I agree with you. You either have to be for WikiLeaks or against it. Now, knowing someone who lost a family member directly resulting from a document that was released by Manning to WikiLeaks, I have a very strong opinion. WikiLeaks is bad 100% of the time. I don't care who it benefits, who it hurts. It's bad. I would love, and of course with our freedoms in this country, this should not and will not happen, but part of me would love to see it banned from internet service providers nationwide.
Yeah, I mean, I think the government would have very real reasons to do so. I also can see why they wouldn't want to do anything like that. It's just this has just gotten so out of control. And like I said, it's become so politically motivated and then divided on whether you are mad or not about these things. And so, I think that just in my opinion, when I'm watching these tweets fly by or I'm reading something that people are posting about, writing articles for various publications online, or I see them arguing on TV about it, I stop taking seriously anyone that refuses to criticize them because it is politically expedient for their purpose. So I understand taking the info and doing what you will with it once it's already out there, but to argue that any of it is actually good for this country, I think is just absolutely insane.
I have to agree with you, Jen. In this day and age, WikiLeaks is pretty much here to stay.
Yep.
However,
it pretty much is.
I'm going to use a saying from an old TV show that I love. In fact, I've begun binge watching it again. MASH. Buffalo chips! That's what I think of WikiLeaks, or horse hockey. I'm sorry.
That's funny. I do wonder when you talk about pardoning someone like Manning, commuting the sentence of someone like Manning, it does make me wonder if there's if someone that's been thrown around a lot as a possibility of to get a pardon from Obama, like Bo Bergdahl, if that is coming in the next 2 days.
Okay. You want to demoralize our military with a stroke of one pen? You go ahead and do that. our military, our United States Armed Forces as a whole, will be so outraged. I have spoken with more men and women about Bergdahl than you want to know.
Yeah.
In fact, Jen, I've actually applied for press credentials to cover the Bergdahl trial.
Wow.
That's how serious I am about Bergdahl.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how often do I actually put myself in that role, take myself out of the spouse role and put myself into the, I'm going to cover this, be there, and follow it. I don't do that very often. When I go on to a United States military base, I'm 99% of the time there to see a friend. I'm there as a spouse. I live on a military base. What one? Guys, that's none of your business. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, since we had kind of a rough start to the show, I just want to remind people where they can interact with us online while we're on air. I am hanging out in the chat room. And I'm on Twitter at Jesse's POV. And where are you hanging out on Twitter? And is your Twitter open?
It is. I'm at J Homestead. So,
or you can go over to the Spreaker.com/KLRNRadio, and literally you can comment directly on the episode, and we'll see that too. So you can actually give us feedback while we're shooting our mouths off, folks.
Well, speaking of kind of like the split left and right and the different hypocrisy, you know, there's just constant, that is what politics is though, right? Just a ton of hypocrisy and a lot of talking about two sides of your mouth. There was a segment on CNN with Mark Lamont Hill. And
okay, who's Mark Lamont Hill?
So he's a talking head.
Okay, got it.
He's an African American, very obviously leftist talking head. And I can find him to be pretty interesting sometimes. But and I watch a little bit of everything when I am ever watching, which is not that often because I tend to get my news elsewhere other than cable news networks, which are, I think, all around kind of biased and awful. But anyways, he had on a couple guests and they were talking about the Trump administration, how in this transition period, there have been people coming out to meet with him at Trump Tower, and specifically some of the African Americans that have. And they were giving some examples, Steve Harvey, Kanye, Ray Lewis. These people all went to go visit him. He called them there to talk about policy that would be close to their hearts, reaching out. Whatever you want to say about it, I don't know what the true intentions are, but it seems like he's been kind of reaching across the aisle. He's been inviting people from all over to talk with him about various things, and maybe some of it doesn't even have to do with policy at all, and maybe he's just being personal. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I do know that people have been saying that it's Trump's administration, or leading up to it, Trump's nomination, then his campaign, Trump has been called a racist. All his supporters are bigots and racists, and that is the name of the game right now. So when he's inviting a black man to the Trump Tower and they leave and they are not just spewing venom about him, this makes some of these people uncomfortable. And I don't know what it is, but I will say that I think that there's a lot of hypocrisy to it, because here's what he ended up saying. He said, he called them all, it was a bunch of mediocre Negroes being dragged in front of TV as a photo op.
Is a work in progress. The truth is that most content doesn't go viral. And so understanding the factors that contribute to that are still really important for understanding how we can reach the large.
Sorry about that. I was looking for an audio clip about something, and something popped up on the background. I didn't catch it fast enough.
Well,
But this is not the first time that African Americans have called one of their own names by a long shot. What about
right.
Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice?
Well, and this leads me to what I was going to say about this is that here's more of this hypocrisy. So they say that, they ask questions like, they say he's racist and this and that, but then he reaches out to Black people and somehow that's still racist and it's just a photo op and it's just this. And the people that go and offer and that accept his invitation, they get hounded. They get called names. They get berated. So they ask, why aren't there more African Americans in the GOP? Why aren't more Black people elected by conservatives? Well, when you spit in their faces and call them Uncle Toms every time, and then you call the people electing them racist or disingenuous or questioning their motives as being some sort of for show to pat themselves on the back and claim to not be racist anymore, well, of course not. Who wants to be in an environment like that? And I'm not talking about the one on the right side. I'm talking about getting the venom spewed at them from the other side. I mean, it's just completely outrageous that this is something, and I've got, I've known people that are minorities on all sides of things, and the things that they have to go through because of what they believe and for not falling in one particular, line and fitting in a certain box. What they really mean, like they don't want them to be able to have their own voice and to stand up unless it's what they view as the correct one. And that is so disgusting to me. And to hear him sit here and call them mediocre Negroes, that is just absolutely uncalled for. Of course, he's apologized now, but you know that if anyone else did something like that, they'd lose their job. And he's just able to, get away with just saying, oh, that was the wrong thing to say and whatever. But I still believe that it was just a photo op, that's the only reason he invited these people. And that's just so condescending, and it's completely insulting to anyone that is interested in reaching across the aisle and having discussions with not only Trump, but anyone else in GOP leadership or it's just so insulting to say that the only reason they would like you or want to talk to you is so that they can have a photo op or so that they can, feel good and be able to put a check mark next to, okay, we talked to a Black person. And then it's just so rude of the person doing the asking to degrade them in that way too and act like they couldn't possibly not be bigoted and actually be interested in hearing what an African American has to say. I'm just so sick of the identity politics, and that is one thing that I'm glad to see Obama go, and hopefully some of that will be ushered out with him, but I just don't think so. I think it's here to stay.
Unfortunately, Jen, I agree with you. Identity politics is here to stay. How did we be... Okay, Jen, where did all the hyphens come from? Why do you have to be an Italian American, a Jewish American, an African American? Whatever happened to just being American?
I don't know, because, the truth is so many of those hyphens aren't even true. You see, like, I've actually got a friend from Jamaica. Like, she is not African American, but that's the box she has to check. She's Jamaican American, but that's become synonymous with Black right now, and various other things. Are you Hispanic? Are you Mexican American? Are you? It's just become such the way that we are so intent on labeling people and putting them all. Like I said before, putting them all in different little boxes and then being able to say, well, 33% of such and such and 28% of such and such, and using it as a way to compare and contrast. Looking at statistics is good for certain kinds of research. When you're talking about pitting the American people against each other, it's just not.
I gotta agree, Jen. I'm sorry. Personally, don't put me in a box.
Right.
I may be Jewish. I may be a military spouse. But you know what? That doesn't mean I have to believe like the Jew who I worship next to, or behave the same way as the military spouse who lives down the street. I want to be me. And the only label I want, other than crazy, which has become pretty much a well-known fact around these parts, is American. I am an American. Period. Don't hyphenate me. I don't want the hyphen.
Right. And I don't either. I think that we've just gone so far with this. I think that when we were talking about right after the election, and there are a lot of people looking for someone to blame that didn't want Trump to be president, and they're saying, women failed, white women failed Hillary. Not enough of them voted for her. So if you're and there were pieces written, oh my goodness, the pieces written about, like, if you are a white woman, and especially if your age is blah, 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 then, this is on you if you didn't vote for her. Well, why am I responsible for her presidency?
Excuse me?
I didn't vote for her because I don't believe in what she stands for.
I don't believe in what she stands for, and I personally, I'm strong on the military side of things, don't think someone who insists on doing putting classified information on an unclassified server deserves the time of day as far as when it comes to becoming commander-in-chief. I'm sorry. It has been proven she had unclassified server. It has been proven without a shadow of a doubt she was reckless. And right. No offense, if she learned from her compatriots in the DNC on how to set a password as password, excuse me, isn't that the first thing you're taught is change your password to something that's not password, Jen?
Oh my gosh, yes. That's just so ridiculous. And that's why I say I think we need to be careful about talking about hacking versus, yes, there was some things that went on that I think that were not good. And I'm not saying that they were, but there's a difference between capitalizing on someone's stupidity and then falling prey to a phishing scam, and someone actually hacking into voting machines and servers and whatnot and getting things that are, not there, or that, are there that they shouldn't be able to access, and for not flagging things securely, and for not doing, all the things that could have been done to avoid some of the stuff that was released. There's just a difference when we use the term hacking, and when the media uses that word, it puts a very different image in people's heads.
Oh, it does. And give me just a second. Let me see if I still have this audio clip. I am looking for one that Obama said a few months back. Let me see if I've still got it. And it was about the elections. Here it is. I've still got it. And this is President Obama.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections, in part because they're so decentralized and the numbers of votes involved. There's no evidence that that has happened in the past, or that there are instances in which that will happen this time. And so I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes. And if he got the most votes, then it would be my expectation of Hillary Clinton to offer a gracious concession speech and pledge to work with him in order to make sure that the American people benefit from an effective government. And it would be my job to welcome Mr. Trump, regardless of what he said about me or my differences with him on my opinions, and escort him over to the Capitol, in which there would be a peaceful transfer of power. That's what Americans do.
Whatever happened to that opinion?
Yeah, well,
I mean, okay.
It's really easy to say ahead of time. I think when they didn't think this could ever be the possibility, it was really easy for them to say things like, accept the results of the election. It's dangerous not to. It's un-American not to. Peaceful this, peaceful that. I mean, I think that it was really easy to say when they really thought they had it in the bag.
Well, guess what? There should still be, I don't care. Okay, and I'm going to bring up a political figure that you're probably a little more familiar with than I am. In fact, he lives in your state. George W. Bush provided Barack Obama. Barack Obama was not the person George W. Bush wanted to welcome to the White House. But he did. And He did it graciously, with dignity and class, and made every available effort to make sure that President Barack Obama on day one had the tools in place he was going to need. Now, when George W. Bush took office, the outgoing Clinton administration had broken keyboards, they'd popped keys off, they'd vandalized things, they'd left graffiti in restrooms. That's not the way to do it.
Right. Well, and I think it did say a lot that several times now Obama has brought up, especially right after the election was over, he brought up that he wanted, that he learned a lot from W and how that happened. He praised him several times, saying that he made it very easy and very simple. But that is the type of person that George W. Bush is. And as we've all seen over the last 8 years, he has gone on and lived his life, and he has rarely commented on anything political that would be that could be used as fodder for the media and could be thrown in someone's face. He stayed out of that. He's supported the troops. He has done the veterans work that he's always done. He has, started his center and has been working towards different things with his institute, but all very low key, and that's
he's
just not Obama.
Exactly. He is what I typically refer to as a class act. He knows how to hold his head high, go on and live his life, and not to interfere with the day-to-day runnings. And Jen, guess what? We got to pay those bills and take a commercial break.
Alrighty.
All right. So you guys hang in there with us. Yes, we are going to run just a little bit long on the tooth tonight because we had some technical glitches I still have not sorted out from the beginning of this show. And we will see you on the other side. Right, Jen?
Yes, we will.
All right.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at rahardin.com. That's the World Wide Web at rahardin.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Hardin to see and purchase his books.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Having a place to go after school will make you a better student. Having an outlet to express yourself will make you a better artist. Having something to do together will make you a better family. At the Y, we're helping build better friends, listeners, writers, swimmers, scientists, and musicians, one chance at a time. Give the gift of opportunity. Support the Y at ymca.net. The Y, for a better us.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round.
Well, hey, and welcome back to the Jenn and Rick Show, temporarily the Jenn and Jesse Show on KLRN Radio. So we have been talking about all things craziness with Manning and Mark Lamont Hill and hypocrisy on the left and the right and WikiLeaks and all sorts of stuff. I kind of wanted to talk about something that it's still political, but it's a little bit more fun than
well,
some
I got
of that
something
other stuff.
too. And so
have you heard about this big rally that Mark Ruffalo, Michael Moore, and Alec Baldwin are planning?
The who and the what rally?
Yeah. So they're planning this huge protest rally on the eve of the inauguration, and it's been organized by Alec Baldwin, Mark Ruffalo, so two actors, and then loudmouth Michael Moore, and it's being done in conjunction with New York Mayor Bill de Blasio and the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Okay, so two actors and a loudmouth plan a rally with.
So this is from the Hollywood Reporter. It says organizers say they expect thousands of New Yorkers to attend the event put together by groups including Greenpeace and the liberal activist organization Move On Trump's home turf. The demonstration is intended as a kickoff to organizing opposition to Trump's policies and support for cities taking their own approach on immigration, climate change, healthcare, workers' rights, and other issues. We are sending a message to Washington that we will fight at every step discrimination and harmful policies today, tomorrow, and every day, Ruffalo said in a statement. He said participants are coming together to stand up for one another, and we will do every day to protect the values we hold dear. So, yeah.
Okay. 1. Healthcare is not an enumerated right in our Constitution. 2. The Constitution says the federal government gets to set immigration policy. So guess what?
Correct. Immigration.
Suck it up.
Immigration is 100% in the federal realm.
So suck it up.
The point of immigration, to not be able to federally control immigration is absolute insanity. To say we just all get to say whatever cities get to say, that has been the big thing. Of course, they're talking about sanctuary cities and they want to hold on to those. But it's insane.
All right. Personal opinion on sanctuary cities, Jen?
I don't believe we have any room for them. I think that it completely undermines not only the laws of our immigration, border, and deportation laws, but I think it sends a loud, resounding message to people that you don't have to respect this country. You don't have to respect any of the laws, and quite frankly, there's nothing anybody can do about it because they won't. They refuse to cooperate, and the feds have so far have not been allowed to do what they should do to remove the people in those cities that are hindering them from fulfilling federal law.
Well, Jen, my opinion, sanctuary cities should lose every single solitary dollar of federal aid. I don't care what it goes for. And yes, I'm going to get nasty emails about, well, why should the school lunch program be affected? Well, you know what? Guess what? Obey federal laws. And
they should have thought about that before they did it.
Exactly. And no, I don't want to see starving kids. But you know what? There are church organizations and community groups that will step up and make sure those kids don't go hungry.
Well, and here's my deal, is that the federal government is told by the Constitution to provide for a common defense and to protect us and our national security. And it can't do that when you've got cities on the inside of this country that are blatantly disobeying those laws and want to make their own rules about those things. It's totally different when you're talking about states' rights on pretty much everything else. But when it comes to immigration, it is a part of national security.
Now, I can agree with states saying we need to set our own healthcare policy.
Sure.
Hey, you want to set your own Medicaid, Medicare, whatever policy? Just like every state, and if I have one of our show hosts here on KLRNRadio, Dr. Judy L. Moore, host of Conversations in Science, lives in New Zealand. The entire country of New Zealand is about the size of the state of California. So it's sometimes a testing ground for things that some of them eventually make their way here and others don't.
Yeah.
But realize
it's like I said, that's one thing that is such in the federal scope. It is actually laid out in the Constitution. And I guess people can argue on whether they think immigration has anything to do with national security or not, but it's absolutely laughable to argue otherwise.
I'm sorry.
I'm also not a hard-lined immigration person. I'm not someone who thinks that like we have to round them all up and kick them all out right now, and that I don't necessarily know all of the answers to how to control it. And I do think some immigration can be good immigration, but we should be able to discern it, and we should be able to choose who's here and know who they are and why they are here and where they're going to be going. And just like anybody else, that they are being a productive member of society. And if we can't count on that, and we aren't even allowed to say no to people that shouldn't be granted access to all the freedoms and wonderful things of this great nation, then we've already kind of lost.
I agree, Jen. I agree. I mean, okay, sanctuary cities need to be ended. And that is one Trump stance I fully support. Now, I am not a Trump supporter. But just like with President Barack Obama, there are a few things he did I actually agreed with. But there are a lot of things he did that I disagreed with. There are a few things Trump is proposing I am 100% behind, and the ending of sanctuary cities is one of those policies. Now, as far as, quote, kick them all out, start with the felons. Start with people that have murdered people, that have run
Right,
people
there's
down.
a really logical way to go about this, and it doesn't mean ripping children away from homes. I mean, that's the kind of narrative that gets pushed, and it's a lot of fear tactic. But when you start rounding up criminals, and then you start rounding up, well, first of all, you round up people with warrants, then you round up people that have um, that are criminals and are felons. And especially if there's any type of violent offender. I mean, I can argue that states could maybe vote if they're going to allow, someone who has a marijuana charge or something to stay. But when you're talking about having people in line waiting and that want to do this right, no, I don't think that person gets to stay. I think they've already violated the privileges they were given by even though they weren't even given them outright, they took them and they abused them already, and they hadn't even been given much. So I think that there are pretty logical ways to go about this that will cut down on a lot of the problem and will allow people who want to be here to be able to stay here and produce.
I feel that to be allowed to come to this country, you need to have not just a skill, but, and I'm not saying you have to have a skill and be able to get a job within 10 minutes, okay? But you should not come to this country and immediately turn to the welfare system, unless, there is an exception, unless, say you worked with our military over in Afghanistan as a translator and your family is being persecuted, and you are fleeing Afghanistan or Iraq for fear of your life. Then if you come here and you may not have the most marketable skill in the world, but hey, if you were a translator, guess what? We still need translators on all levels of government all over the nation. You do have a marketable skill.
Right. And I think, and that is where most countries all over the world, that is what part of what their guidelines are. And so when we kind of get knocked on in the international news and community for acting like we're somehow heartless for voting for someone like Trump, who has said that, you shouldn't be here illegally, and somehow that is just completely audacious, when all of their countries have far more strict laws and regulate them very well.
Japan doesn't allow Muslims into the country, period, end of sentence.
Well, I know that I was in Europe for, the better part of a year. And at one point, my visa hadn't come through. And, you're allowed to be there Spain allows you 3 months. Most of the EU allows you 3 months without a visa, that you can be traveling and whatever. And at the beginning of my thing, I had switched my study. So my visa, I had to go through the Spanish consulate, and it just wasn't coming through in time for me to go. So I went ahead and went, and then pending visa. Well, come month 4, it hasn't come. So when I was invited to go to Switzerland, I was told by the U.S. consulate not to go, because I would probably be basically deported from Switzerland because they're much stricter and they watch these things. Same thing with going to the UK and going. So after I had passed that stay point, there were a good number of countries all in that area that I was advised to not visit it until I was squared away again, because they would most likely deport, because they do keep an eye on all these things. And that was for, a 25-year-old American girl, So imagine what they do for someone more suspect.
I mean, okay, no offense.
And rightly so. It's their prerogative. It's their autonomy. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be allowed to have sovereignty. There's just no reason.
We enter into a computer system when somebody enters this country. And we enter into a computer when they leave. But you know what? Those two computer systems aren't linked.
Mm-hmm.
And that's flaw number 1. And I agree. If UPS can track a package, or the Postal Service, or FedEx, any of these people can track a package to my front door from Amazon or Vistaprint, or you send me something in the mail, Jen, they can track that package to my front door. Why can't we at least track track when someone enters this country and someone leaves this country?
I mean, we should be able to, is the bottom line.
The technology exists.
We should be able to. Obviously, there's always going to be like holes in the system, I think, but for the most part, the bulk of people, we should be able to.
Exactly. I mean, there's always holes. God knows we've exploited other countries' holes in their immigration, in their travel visas and immigration system. My favorite example of that would be the now fairly well-known movie, if you've seen it, Argo.
Yes.
How we got 6 Americans, and for those of you who aren't listening, Argo is the story of how we got 6 Americans out of Tehran, Iran, immediately after the revolution, when the rest of their co-workers at the embassy were being held hostage. And it was through with the Canadians' help, and believe it or not, some people in Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that amazing to think about Hollywood then and now?
Oh, I know. Whatever happened to their sense of patriotism?
When I think about all of the stars that gladly, fought and participated in World War II, sometimes it just seems like a whole. That seems like Hollywood itself. That seems like a whole story. That seems like a movie that never really happened, but it did. It's part of the fabric of America's modern history.
Well, I've got a story I want to mention, and this one didn't make national headlines, and it won't. But I thought it was rather telling. And I'm holding in my hand an official a copy, and it's a declassified document, so no nasty emails, please. It's called a MILPER message, which is a military message. It was put out about reenlistment and retention. Now I'm going to read the first line, one of the lines first, and then we'll go on to tell you what it says. This message is effective on 20 January 2017. Now, what's so notable about the 20th of January, Jen?
Oh, I think maybe. Oh yeah. Oh, Trump is going to be inaugurated.
All right. So, that was on the front page. Now I'm skipping 11 pages worth of gobbledygook because I'm not going to read you every reenlistment bonus on here because, well, A, we don't have time for it. B, it's not relevant to my point. Soldiers with a fiscal ETS year 2017 expiration of term of service, which means this is referring to the United States Army. Any member of the United States Army who is slated to get out of the Army in fiscal year 2017, which means from October 2016 to October 2017. Okay? Because the fiscal year for the Army goes October 1st to September 30th.
Mm-hmm.
If they extend for 12 months or more, they may be eligible for a lump sum bonus payment of $10,000. So what this says to me, Jen, and then I'll let you comment on it, is that someone finally woke up and realized our military was being gutted. And they want to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, I mean, like you did say before, possibly there's some sort of deal that's already kind of been cut, and there's something we don't know yet that'll be coming out. I don't know, but I mean, this seems pretty significant to me.
And it's one of those things that your average journalist is never even going to find. I happen to trip over this stuff on a routine basis because, well, I'm a military spouse and this stuff affects people all around me. And one of the other spouses was like, I've heard rumors of this. Is this a thing? Is it, because you hear, okay, on a military base, you have what is affectionately called the SNN, the Soldier News Network. It's water cooler talk.
Right.
Some of it's legit. Some of it holds no more water than a sieve, Jen. And you kind of got to filter through that noise to find what's real. So I was up before dawn this morning making breakfast burritos for the Family Readiness Group to sell at a fundraiser this morning. And another spouse and I were talking as I was sitting there with the breakfast burritos, and they were like, is this real? Is my husband eligible for this? And I said, well, I can't answer that for you, but you know what? I can track down the MilPer message because it's not going to be classified. There's nothing classified about a reenlistment bonus or an extension bonus. Absolutely nothing classified about it, folks. And I said, I can track it down. I know what websites will have it, and I can get you that information later. You know, in other words, I don't have it right now. It had been Soldier News Network talk for a couple of days now. And so before I got on air, maybe 10 minutes before I got on air on my own show, I called her and wasn't able to reach her, and she called me back, and I was like, yeah, it's legitimate. And I read her the effective date, and then I read her that sentence, the same thing about the extension thing, because her husband is due to get out later this year. And, you know, if he extends for a year, that would be a nice chunk of change for a family looking to buy their own house and get away from Army life, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I can't even imagine the difference that kind of money could make in someone's life.
Now, granted, it'll be taxable unless her husband is serving overseas when he gets it.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. In fact, little known fact. All right. Please, I'm not a tax attorney or tax expert, but this worked in my life. My husband, Dave Brewer, who once in a while I get him on the show, but pretty rare, was eligible for a tuition reimbursement thing. Well, that money's taxable. So we put it off, knowing that he was going to deploy in so many months. He did the tuition reimbursement while he was serving overseas, and because he was serving overseas, there were no taxes on it. So they still withheld the taxes on the tuition reimbursement, but that means that when we file our taxes for the year he was deployed, we get it back in a refund, 100% of it.
Oh, wow.
And he was eligible for like a $30,000 tuition reimbursement because he already had his college degree when he came into the military, and no, he's not an officer. He is enlisted. He is a non-commissioned officer, and he's very proud to be one. He didn't want to run a desk. He wanted to actually be out there. He's not a paperwork type. So that's why he didn't go to the officer side.
Gotcha.
But he already had his degree, so he just wanted help paying for the degree he'd already gotten. So he opted not to do the GI Bill, but to do the tuition reimbursement program instead. So we held off doing that bonus, the tuition reimbursement payment, until he was overseas, which made it non-taxable. So there are ways to make a deployment actually work for you in that respect. But like I said, it's just a fascinating thing.
It certainly is, and the timing of all of this is very interesting.
I know, and this message was what's the actual official date? Issued 13 January 2017.
So basically just a week before.
Yep. So the issue date is the 13th of January. It goes into effect on the 20th of January. Now, there is another little note that says it could change after the 20th of February. Basically, there's probably some number they're looking for of soldiers to take advantage of this. And once they hit that unknown magic number, they'll go, okay.
Right.
We're changing either the number or the dollar figure, either the number of jobs that are eligible for this or the dollar figure eligible for this.
Right.
So, speaking of inauguration, and I know we only have a couple of minutes left, in fact, just about a minute or two, but Rick, if you're listening, we're just running over. Get over it. We had technical difficulties. Get over it. But anyway, so Toby Keith and the inauguration. He basically said, well, I've got to see whether I've got 1 or 2 concert dates. But you know what? That man has performed for our troops many times. And he has performed at many functions. And you know what? I'm sick and tired of people screaming and yelling at performers and giving them death threats because they have been asked to be part of history. That's their decision.
I am right there with you. It's one thing if they want to refuse on their own, but when they are getting outwardly attacked, and not just attacked by like random fans or this or that. I mean, we're talking about colleagues, threatening their careers and wanting to see them shut down. This is just the division, the political division, in which the left tried to say it was all the right, is being exposed even further. But I just can't imagine wanting to treat someone so badly. Do you know how many artists that I respect and enjoy listening to their music and whatever their politics are, I wasn't even remotely annoyed if they performed at, one of Obama's celebrity shindigs or at the inauguration or whatever. It didn't mean anything to me. Who cares? Why are people so hung up on this?
Well, I got my way for it, to say it. If you disagree with we'll just use musician as an example. Vote with your dollars. Just don't buy their records. That doesn't mean you have to send death threats over social media, folks. That's just not only bad. It could get you in real serious trouble. So
absolutely.
Vote with your wallet. You don't agree with what some musician, and I'm using that as an example. There are certain movies I will not watch because I don't agree with the lead character's stance. Now, there's only 2 or 3, but there are certain ones I say, nope, I'm done. I won't buy it. I won't watch it. I won't support it.
And that is the beauty of our system right now, is we can do that.
Exactly.
We aren't forced, except for healthcare, to pay for anything, really.
Exactly,
well,
Jen. But that's,
I guess,
healthcare.
I guess taxes. But we're pushing that aside for a second. I'm just talking about frivolously. Frivolously, we're not required to buy any products. So turn the TV off and don't watch it if you don't want to see it or if you're mad about who's performing in it. It's really not that big of a deal.
Exactly. All right, Jen, we got to get on out of here.
All right. Well, come bug me on Twitter at jhomestead and check out misfitspolitics.com.
All right, and you can find me on Twitter at Jessie's POV. And if you want to shoot us annoying little comments from tonight's show or positive comments or any feedback at all, I'm going to give you 2 ways to do it. Obviously, you can catch us both individually on social media. There's a contact form on KLRNRadio.com. Yes, those emails actually get read and responded to. And you can also email me at jessiespov@klrnradio.com. On that note, Jen, I think we're gone.
I think we're out of here. Thanks for joining me.
Anytime, darling.
Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what